Hey everybody, it's Derek Jameson and welcome to the fifth episode in my how-to series, Practical Spirituality and Mysticism. And in this episode, I partner with Christian Bradley West, also known as the Country Clairvoyant. You might have seen his really funny memes that help us navigate the spiritual dimensions and our own spiritual journey. He's an amazing clairvoyant and psychic, and if you haven't checked out his material, now is the time. We have so much amazing information coming forward from this session about how to create humor and see the humor within spirituality to enter back into that childlike state. Simple, practical steps, and we do take it a little bit deeper and talk about sexuality. Ooh, what does that mean? So I hope that you join us in this incredible journey. This is Derek Jameson and Christian Bradley West. Let's dive in. Hello, Christian. I'm so excited to talk to you today. I think this is an amazing topic that we should be discussing within spirituality. And it's all about humor, finding lightheartedness, and enjoying it. And I think that's such a beautiful and powerful aspect to a spiritual journey. So, in your opinion and in your experience, why do we want to find humor within spirituality?
It's interesting. I don't know if we have to find it. We use that word a lot. Here I am getting specific off the point. I feel like it's already there. It's available to us. It simply is a shift in degree from looking at things, our life that can appear so very heavy. And most of us that are on this journey started with, as they say, the awakening, which can also be very in another way of putting it oftentimes is the dark night of the soul. Maybe having a couple of them, not just one. So it can start off extremely serious because many are also unpacking their trauma, and which involves a certain level of fear and shame and grief. So that feels very serious. If you come from the depths of pain feels serious because our brain is like, that's bad. I need to get away from that. This isn't funny. this is And so it's of value for us to pause in the process and go, okay, what is this as serious as I think? And of course, serious doesn't mean that you lack responsibility or accountability or reflection or any of that stuff. It doesn't mean the humor doesn't mean that you're sidelining the importance or the value of the experience at all. It simply means that you're willing to observe it, look at it, and perceive it in those that experience in those moments from a place that alchemizes it. Humor alchemizes everything, which is to say, turns it from lead into gold. It and it makes it less precious, which I think is important, actually, to make our pain less precious, because then it gives us the opportunity to shift the narrative of it, and opens up the boundaries and the borders for it. So to be able to laugh at things, even if we don't feel it, just to laugh is of great value.
That's literally what I said this morning to someone. I was like, listen, even when the contrasting moments happen, and it doesn't matter if they're light or heavy, I'll literally start laughing at the situation and I'll be like, of course this is happening now. And then I'll turn it into humor because it feels better. We get to choose where we want to be on that spectrum and how we want to have the experience.
And then, like you said, the word choose, because that's what it is. We always have a choice. And of course, again, if we come from a certain amount of pain and trauma, as I know you have, as I have, as many people out here watching us, listening to us have, it feels dense, it feels serious. And the And why does it? Let's address that for a moment. It's because our brain is wired for it. It's that simple. We've been wired to feel the seriousness. Oftentimes, there's a correlation between how serious people are and shame. And this isn't anything I made up. It just happens. It's part of how we're wired. as humans. And so it's important for us to recognize that for what it is in our awakening. And then in the awakening, we get the opportunity to choose differently because we realize there are different choices. And so it's like, okay, well, this happened and that was really uncomfortable and challenging and, as I like to say, annoying. Oftentimes I'm like, well, that was annoying. um
Yeah.
that's what I say more than anything. I'm like, "Oh, that was annoying. Okay, now what?" um and I mean, even yeah, I mean, even the worst of my trauma, I'm like, god, that was annoying that happened. Poor me, but not really. Let's move on. And how I do that is to go, okay, well, let's just fucking laugh about it, even if it wasn't laughable. Sometimes I just, it sounds insane, but and what does that do? It starts to rewire the brain. A lot of the spiritual practices out there, meditation, yoga, whether it's hatha or kriya, whatever, different qigong, all these different modalities ultimately are put in place to rewire the brain body connection to support us in seeing things in a more calm or peaceful manner,
Yeah.
instead of operating out of that fear based reaction. um, um, well, I was going to say the amygdala, the fear center of the brains. So
Mhm.
stop acting out of that and start using other parts of us.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, I see you as a channel of humor, meaning like that you were, you chose to come here to instill light in a different way and to instill that because I like if I tried to make the content you make, it would be so like inauthentic. It would come
Yeah.
out like a big old mess. And so when I see you and I see a post that you make, these incredible like posts and memes and messages that come through just even in the image itself, let alone the description, I'm just like, dude, he channels this beautiful, like funny, real, accessible stuff that people can identify with that make it okay for people to have darker experiences and to meet their shadow self, and you do it in such a beautiful harmonious way that I really do see you as a channel of like lightheartedness and humor. So I'm really glad that we're discussing this. How does it feel when you're making a post like that?
Sometimes it's not easy, and it's not always easy. So sometimes it comes like many things creatively, as there can be flashes of insight, and it was like, oh, that's perfect. I'm gonna do that. And then other times it's like, oh, well, how do I make this circumstance funny? How do I talk about this and allow, well, because as I say, shift very quickly. I'd say I walk the line of the sacred and the profane. And the profane can very much so be the funny, because the sacred tends to be very precious. People want to hold on to it. Like this is a sacred space. This is a sacred thing. And I was like, sacred doesn't mean it lacks humor.
Yeah.
Sacred doesn't mean it lacks being funny. So it's a process, like anything. Sometimes it's a very quick process, and sometimes it's a more steady process. The meme I posted today, someone else had made, and it's always been a favorite meme. And so I was like, well, I'm gonna repost it because it had a raccoon in it, and a raccoon showed up yesterday. And I was like,
Mm,
let's talk a little bit about raccoon, and let's connect this dot to what's also going on in the planetary bodies and things like that. So it's, for me, it's as much about connecting all the dots as anything else as well. The funniness that we have with it, the, as I call it, the country fried kundalini, because I take these things and change it, from my perspective. We, again, it's about rewriting the narrative, about shifting the story, about changing how we talk to ourselves, and so I've always had a weird sense of humor. I didn't know that it was accepted by people until I got on Instagram. And people were like, "Oh, you're we like this. And I'm like, okay, good.
Oh my God, they love it. Love it. Anytime I share your stuff, and I don't share a lot of stuff, when it comes, I just have really, it really has to literally hit my heart, and like people need to hear this, like this thing they need to hear. And if I come across it, and I really don't scan Instagram that much, to be honest with you, because
Yeah.
it'll just distract me from what I'm doing, and I'm doing a lot of things. But man, I always know that you're gonna bring something that people need, that they're gonna like laugh at themselves about, and create and alchemize it within your post. Like I
Yeah.
know that that's what happens when they see your posts. They alchemize it within them in the moment because they flip the fear into the laughter, into the humor.
Yeah. Yeah, I
So
like that. I like that you said that, flip the fear into the laughter. I mean, that's really lovely. I mean, yeah, I mean, people talk about interrupting anxiety with gratitude, and sometimes you can interrupt it with laughing. And research, this is something I didn't make up, but research says that actually smiling, just simply smiling, changes how our brain perceives things.
mhm.
Most people aren't necessarily walking around with a scowl on their face. They're like, they're not frowning, they're not doing
Correct.
that, but they aren't necessarily smiling either. And we can't smile without a, if everyone out there listening just takes a moment and smiles and tunes into their body and where they feel the shift within themselves, that's another way of interrupting that anxiety and that depression. And sometimes it's a practice, because I'm not going to lie, I can be extremely serious and I can be very edgy, and sharp in biting in my perceptions of things, without humor. I can be very sarcastic. I don't really do it. It doesn't pop up for me very often anymore. It used to a lot. Um, because I feel like sarcasm is different than humor. It tends to have a darkness to it, if that makes sense. It's not as light. Like self-deprecating humor really does no good for anybody in the
Yeah.
world. We're not, so we want to use the humor to hopefully celebrate and instill faith and joy. But I, which again, some people might not find in my work, because I am a little dark. I can't help it. I do like to expose the darkness by using the darkness, in the funniness of it. But yeah, just if people take a moment to pause and go, where am I emotionally right now? And I'm just gonna smile. I'm just going to smile. I'm just going to see what that's like, and have that be a simple meditation. People think meditation has to be something so involved. And again, like light the incense, burn the sage, open sacred space. I was like, you are sacred space. Open yourself in that moment with the smile.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Yes.
yeah.
Oh my God, you said something so important. I'm holding a crystal, by the way, my Lemurian seed. The whole
Very
time we've been
good.
talking, I'm like, yes.
Lovely.
Um,
Yay.
you said something so important that I really want to just pinpoint right there, is that you're the sacred space. I tell people, I'm like, dude, your heart, like you're the portal. It's all
Yeah.
here. You can go seeking or doing this or needing this, but you don't need any of that. Like I see
Yeah.
angels and extraterrestrials and beings and all that, and I've never taken a plant medicine. So
Yeah.
it's like, because I know that I'm the portal, I know that I'm the access point. So
Yeah.
you are the sacred space, is that's beautiful. I really love that. So I'm glad you brought that forward.
Good, good. Yeah, as I realize I'm wearing my stars on my chest today. So the void is the heart.
Oh
Where,
man, I love it.
yeah, where I say you can't see anything, but you can find everything.
Mm.
So,
Ah, I love it. So you're getting into what I really wanted to like focus on, which was how can people be able to find, rediscover. Well, I'm going to use a different word, rediscover that's something that's already there, which is that
yeah,
humor and spirituality.
yeah,
But you've already been bringing that forward, but saying that whole thing of just literally trying a simple exercise. One, smile, because it really does change the vibration. Like even if you're having an illness within your body, or your stomach hurts, or your heart's feeling weird, you could literally smile at the organ, and communicate with it and be present
Yeah.
with the organ, and it changes the vibration and what's taking place within the physical body. So you bring
Yeah.
up such the most simple and powerful tool, honestly, but people have to choose to remember it.
Well, yeah, and again, it's that choice. I have been in relationships, friendships, and romance where people go, "I can't help how I feel," and to me, that is the voice of the victim. You might feel like you can't help that you can feel that way because you're feeling that way based on your conditioning, based on what you've learned. So, okay, fine. You feel that way, and that's okay. I don't want to bypass that. I go, okay, that's a start. And what if you could choose it? What if you do have a choice? What if that voice in your head that says you can't help it is lying to you, and you can help it? So you make the change. You make the change, and that's really part of a huge part of this journey is making the changes that we want to make in our life in order to support our growth, our development, our seeming growth and development, actually, because in the world of form, everything appears to constantly be growing, expanding, or contracting, or doing something like that. In the world of spirit and beyond, everything just already is. Everything's already in its wholeness. There is no duality. But here we have that. So everything looks like the seed looks like it becomes the tree, even though it holds within it already the tree. And we are the same. We hold within us already who we are. We hold within us our wholeness, our authenticity. And part of this journey is, I wouldn't say necessarily finding it, but it appears that way. It appears as a process of discovery, of going within and recognizing things. Because as I like to say, we are the gift, the giver of the gift, the unwrapper of the gift, and what's inside the gift. We're all the things. So, it to a degree, it is like finding, but it. But in reality, it is simply recognizing or being reminded.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
Um, when you're talking, what was coming forward for me was because I know that a lot of people have fear around spiritual connections. So when
mm,
entities begin to connect with them, they will have a lot of fear surrounding it. And I've talked about this kind of before, but I just think that your personal like perspective on finding and with humor within this realm is very important. How do people find humor when they're met with a shadow aspect of themselves or other
yeah.
entities like extraterrestrial beings or lower frequency entities?
Yeah, that's a good question. It's funny. I had a client recently. We were talking about some kind of demon energy, which I simply call a thought form. They're just thought forms that wander the planet, that
Yeah.
feed on the fear and the shame and so forth. And she said to me, she said, "You're so calm. You're so calm about talking about it." So I'll tell you what I said to her that flashed into me at that moment. I said, "Well, I have a choice." So it goes back to what we've talked about already, which seems to be a theme of our conversation. Is I say, well, I have a choice on how I choose to engage with them, and the thought is that or the assumption is that they must be more powerful than us. They must know more than us. They must have the ability to take us over, and we again have no choice. And I said, but I know I have a choice. So if I don't want this thing around, whether it's a thought or whether it's an energy or whatever it is, I send it on. I go, no, I'm not doing that. One of the things I say oftentimes is, "Not today, Satan." Not today. I'm done with you. I'm not doing this. And when my mediumship skills, which were always there, blew up in my late 30s. I got very sick. And as one of my practitioners and acupuncturist said, you're walking the line of death because you've been close to it. So death is close to you. I had to make an agreement with myself and say, I'm not going to just allow random ghosts to show up to me and ask for assistance. It was like, if you have someone that you want to connect with, then you need to bring them to me, and I will read for that. But I don't, if you're just coming to me going, I need help, I don't know what that is. So I made a
Yeah.
boundary, I made an agreement there and said, no, no, not doing that. And no one is allowed in my space without permission. If I'm giving a reading and someone steps forward, then I'll do that, which doesn't happen very often, by the way, because it's not something I find. Just because they're dead, or just because or we perceive we have unfinished business with that person, doesn't necessarily mean that's the case. Um, so um, so I don't always read for that. But yeah, I do, as I say, hear voices, and so I listen very closely. And of course, again, another agreement I made is I only wanted the voice of truth within me. So I whatever that is at that moment, I want to be able to say it. I always use the example of the Oracle and Neo in the Matrix, where she told him he wasn't the one at one point in it. So essentially, she lied to him, but she knew he was the one, but she gave him the information he needed to hear at that moment. So it was the truth for him then and
Hmm.
there. Yeah. So,
It's so funny that you bring that up because early on, I made a video that said sometimes a lie is told for your highest good. And because it gets
yeah.
people to make the choice or makes people to do, they need to make the journey themselves. And if we know the full thing, we're not going to make those choices that are necessary. So in the end, it
Yeah.
really is all for the highest good, even if it's like something so serious that takes place.
Well, and is it a lie? In that example I
Mm.
used,
Hmm.
Neo had to choose to be the one. So he wasn't
Yeah.
the one until he chose it.
Yeah.
So,
Hmm.
so was it a lie, or was it simply the information that was true in that moment? And then looking back, and you go, "Well, I was the one." Well, yeah, you were always the one, but you didn't believe it. So if you didn't
Yes.
believe it, then you were lying to yourself. So I didn't tell you anything that wasn't being held by your consciousness then and there. That simply was brought to the surface that you had to challenge, like he did in the story. He had to challenge the fact that he felt like he wasn't the one, and then when he challenged it, it came out that he was.
Yeah.
So that's a valuable lesson for any of us. That's why I say anything that comes through in a reading, I tell clients you're allowed to confirm or deny, but let's look at it you know and to the point of our conversation, hopefully by the end or at some point we can laugh about it, whatever it all is.
Hmm.
So
I'm reflecting on like how when I'm sitting with a client or a person that buys a session or anything like that, I do more channeling work, meaning I just kind of tune up and open my field, and I don't necessarily I do receive pictures and I do receive images of different maybe past lives because I'm really connected in that realm.
yeah,
But I love learning from like mediums and psychics because I just love seeing how we receive information differently. Whereas I just open my mouth and it's just like, and it's a channeled message rather than like, I don't see images from spirit. They just pour information through me, if that makes sense.
yeah, and that happens to me too. I
Hmm.
mean, I think it's yeah, absolutely. Which, for anyone who's listening, most people that are out there would call themselves empaths or intuitives or things like that. And I would say all you're capable of doing is realizing that you're a radio, and but again, you get to tune the frequency. You get to
Yeah.
decide where you go with that. So it's yeah, yeah,
That's an interesting point too, because someone I was talking to another on like you got to get on Clubhouse, let's just say, because it's like a community of people that get attracted to each other that are all sharing this kind of stuff. If you're
yeah,
in the right rooms, that is. So I was talking with another intuitive healer, and I said, yeah, my connections are really interdimensionals and like archangels and angels and light beings, and really I don't get grandmas and grandpas. And she goes,
yeah,
what they just told me when you said that? She said, they told me that you see them all of the time, but you have different work to do, and you're bringing in different information. So they just support it and stand there and assist you, but you can see them. And I
yeah,
go, you're right. I literally see the ancestors in the light, like when I'm sitting with a client or when I'm just sitting here. I'll see them around the room doing different things in the light.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because I don't get information from people's necessarily their family members that have passed on. I'm getting like stuff like almost from their ancient lineage or their star families that are
Yeah.
passing down the information that they need in order to be the leader that they came here to be. It's very
Yeah.
interesting. And just even when I said that, they just sent a wave down my body to like my entire body to like confirm that.
Yeah.
that.
Yeah.
It is so beautiful, and it's just a beautiful, lovely experience, you know. So I really like listening to how you I like listening to how you work and all that. So
Yeah. Good. Thank you. Same.
so what else like within because we have accessible way like the biggest thing is the choice point, like knowing that we have a choice in which direction we
Yeah.
want to go, which I also believe leads to breaking cycles and patterns within the family lineage and within their multidimensional lives that they also live. There's so many things that when you realize that you have a choice to change the trajectory of something than you would normally choose it. I think that's very important. And then we have
Yes.
smile, but what else would you say would be accessible means for people looking to like, uncover their humor within spirituality?
Surround yourself with other people that laugh.
Yes.
Surround yourself with other humorous humans. We do not live on an island or in a vacuum. Well, some people might live in a vacuum or echo chamber, but it's ultimately we don't. And so it's important to look outside of ourselves, which could also be looking within, depending on where you're standing. I'm not saying look outside of yourself as far as disenfranchising yourself or realizing you're not capable. That's not what I mean. What I mean is seek out the support um, of our fellow humans who are also on this path and who you resonate with in that humor. Not everyone resonates within with my sense of humor. Not everyone not everyone says, "Oh, that works for me." I talk a lot about sexuality and sex and things like that as mixed with spirituality, and that is not everyone's cup of tea. But people who have dealt with their sexuality or dealt with sex, who don't surround it with shame or anything, oftentimes get it. And so, I don't stress about that. If I'm not for that person, I'm not for that person. But I certainly surround myself with the people that are. And that's not to say that I'm trying to live in an echo chamber or a vacuum. It's simply that that's my pack. Those are my people. And let's laugh. Let's have fun with this. Humor is in direct proportion to your willingness to play.
Your
And so,
willingness.
yeah,
Yes.
yeah. And we it's fun to play with others. you know so that play factor is so important and of great value, which is something that gets conditioned out of us. We make the assumption that because we're grown-ups, we have to be serious and we have to be responsible, and responsibility has to be serious and accountability has to be serious. And I'm like, no, I hold myself accountable all the time through humor, all the time.
Yeah.
you know so again, it's a perception shift. So it's and again, I want to be connected to people who are laughing too.
Sorry, you say things and then things come up for me, so then I have to write them down.
No, this is like, it happens all the time. I'm like, in every reading, I'm like, get your notebook, bitch. Like,
Yep.
get ready, because here it comes. Here it comes.
Yep. Um, so there's two things I want to say. I want to touch on the child, like the humorous and lightheartedness. I always
Yeah,
tell people, I'm like, listen, if you know by now that we're energy and a soul having this experience, a physical experience, I was like, strip it all away. And I said,
yeah,
strip all the physicality away, strip this experience away, and return back and imagine yourself just as pure energy. What is that? It's
yeah,
vibration, it's sound and light bouncing off of each other, like playfulness that doesn't look like an old person in an old body. you
Yeah.
know? And even this morning, someone said, she was like, "Oh, look at us old people trying to figure out TikTok." And I said, "Girl," I was like, "you can put that on yourself." I said, "But I don't feel like that at all. In fact, I feel so in tune with my inner child and playfulness that I dance around every day listening to house music. And I am laughing and playful with all of these beautiful spiritual people that I have so close to my heart and I look up to and respect." And I was like, so I don't feel like that at all. And I think remembering that we are energy, sound, and light bouncing off of each other is so important to strip away this limiting belief about this physical experience.
Well, exactly. And that goes back to what I said about the void, where everything's there. We just don't necessarily see it. We are the energy and the information of the universe, albeit for a moment in the evolution of mankind in a body. Um and so we're just one piece of the bigger picture in that instance, but in another instance we are everything all at once.
Mm.
So I pay attention to this when the lack presents and the scarcity mindset to realize that it already all exists. So what am I afraid of? What am I afraid of not having?
Yeah.
um, and is what I want, is it true, or is it coming from my conditioning? So to me, we are those energy bodies, and if we're all those energy bodies, then all we need to do is again change the radio station. So
And you also brought up something. I know this is supposed to be about humor, but you made a really good point. And if you bring it forward, I know that people need to hear this. You brought up how some people don't resonate with some of your material,
yeah.
and especially the sexually driven ones. But they're
Yeah.
so important because they're. And you brought up the point. I was sitting there going, shame and guilt. And then you said people that have not been able to heal those aspects of themselves do tend to get set off by them or turn it away because
Yeah.
and honestly to just be full disclosure, because you post that, I am allowing myself to see aspects of sexuality, guilt or shame that allow me to crack open those things, ideas
Yeah.
that I may have had. So just in a personal sense, you really allowed me to do that. And if you've allowed me to do that, who is constantly allowing the shadow to be seen, and to face that, imagine how many people need that information, because even those people that are triggered by it, you're like helping crack them open, is what I say.
I think sexuality is one of, or if we want to call it, the shame around sexuality is one of the deepest wounds of humanity, because we've been taught that it is wrong or bad, in some fashion. Many people, of course, potentially are abused in that fashion when they're young. So, of course, that creates shame around it in that perspective. A lot of religions and so forth, you're supposed to hide your sexuality, you're supposed to hide this. And I don't know, I still haven't figured out why I have to talk about it and again bring humor to it, because I don't have any issues with it. I've never had any issues with it. Really. I mean, I went through a phase very briefly when I was essentially having a sexual awakening as a teenager, and thought that I was going to hell because I thought that even masturbation was sex out of wedlock, and I was gonna be burned in hell for it. So, even though no one had ever said it was bad, I just thought it was, because I was very young and naive. uh, and so for some reason that has to be a part of this work. And again, I even taught country fried kundalini. The kundalini sits at the base of the spine, sits in our root chakra, sits down below, and when it awakens it moves. So so even having that coil down at the base says to me that we must using our sexuality, using being comfortable with that part of our body is of great and utmost value for us to access our creativity. It is a very primal creative urge to sex, to make babies, to do all those things. So why wouldn't it be something that we have to come to terms with in this experience, and why treat it as if it's, again, why make it too sacred? Of course it is sacred, but let me say it differently: why make it too special? Why make it too precious? you know
Yeah.
so
And I bring up that point too because I've been having discussions in rooms that have a lot of women in there and within the mental health arena, and I've been bringing forward the fact that men's sexuality has been suppressed in different ways that people don't fully understand or
oh,
see, and yeah,
yes.
and
I
so the
love you say that. Well,
yes,
having to live out of the alpha,
yep,
having to perform,
yep,
because it becomes a performance. The alpha, that role of the alpha, the role of the man is a performance.
yep,
And so having to perform aggressively, having to perform in that way has been normalized, and it's bullshit. Having to perform without access to your emotions, without the depth of that. And really, I would say, to your point, it's not even they've been repressed sexually, they've been repressed emotionally, which is showing up in sexual dysfunction,
yep,
whether that's highly aggressive sex, or the other end of the spectrum, erectile dysfunction and not being able to function sexually,
yeah.
but still having the urge to do so. So there's a spectrum there with it. So yeah, we want to look at all the pieces in life, not
And that's why
ignore any of them.
Yeah, that's why I think those discussions are very important. But as you've seen, like that's not something that's fully discussed out there. And that's why I am bringing it in discussions where there are women and
Yeah,
spiritual women, because in order for the feminine to be really infused within the masculine and for that to balance out, the feminine energies need to understand the masculine and what that storyline, that narrative, again, talking about narratives, how that has played out and how the masculine energy is now coming into balance, because look at what we're talking about. That's why it's
yeah,
clearly seen that this is actually happening, and I believe that we are the proponents of that and that we have a big part to play with that balance. And that's also why I think we're here, is bringing
yes, I
all of
agree.
the divine energies into that balance, because that's the only way we get that portal to back to the understanding and, whoa, we all are one.
Yeah, it goes back to the wholeness.
Yeah.
There is no one is ultimately, no one is more or less than anything else. We all carry all the pieces. Every man carries testosterone and estrogen. Every woman carries the same, just in different proportions. When we start out in our mother's womb, we are all these asexual beings that then develop into something over time, and so and we so and so it's very important, or of value, let's say, for us to realize, again, all the pieces, and it's just part of us. And so a lot of women, were not allowed to express their sexuality for years because it was improper. It was, considered whorish, all of that stuff. You have to be the virgin. Of course, there's a lot of men who want the virgin whores. And then there's, so there's that cognitive dissonance there: be a virgin in the street and a whore in the sheets. Um, and then, of course, and in Victorian ages, there was something called hysteria. So women having orgasms were considered hysterical,
Mm.
which is ridiculous. And then you have, and then you have the men who are not allowed to be emotional about anything. And so, so the women are considered hysterical because they're too emotional, and men are considered stone walls because they're not emotional enough. But, to be masculine is to not allow yourself to cry, or to express those things. And so that impacts every part of our life, including our sexuality, because it's all connected. And anyone who says otherwise, I say, is ignorant.
Yeah.
Ignorant as to say, not as they're stupid, or they is to say that you just don't know. You just don't know because you're not paying attention. And so, not that's not a judgment. That's just simply a fact
Yeah.
that and so we must look at all the pieces. It's so which brings in our discussion, the humor. Humor is a part of the piece of this path, and every spiritual teacher has an amazing and remarkable sense of humor about things. you know? And so again, you can choose to be stuck in your seriousness, or you can choose to go, God, how can I laugh about this today? This is a very uncomfortable today. What can I do about this? Or this is a very uncomfortable moment. I think about the meme with the picture of a dog that just looks like just completely
Yeah.
uncomfortable, and it says, I am very uncomfortable right now. I was like, that is basically my life most of the time. So yeah.
I love it, and I do believe that talking about that aspect today was very important. Excuse me, was very important to kind of bring forward because yeah, it just I think that we're learning how to be more vulnerable, and it's a time for men to understand that it's okay to be emotional,
Yeah.
and that reconnectivity between I always talk about the four bodies and the emotional, the mental, the physical, and the spiritual bodies all have to
Yeah.
be in harmony, not always in balance because that's how we grow, but like it needs to be in a harmonious state, all working with each other. And when we have that emotional body out of whack, it throws off every other aspect of ourselves. Same thing with
Yeah.
if you're disconnected from spirit, it's throwing off the rest of the other three bodies. So
Yeah.
and that's what I think that, I know I'm personally here to reconnect that foundation and that structure. It creates that square, that number four.
Yeah.
And I really think that having this discussion today has been a big key part to play in that. I think that those who watch this are going to really
Yeah.
absorb a lot of really good stuff today.
Well, men tend to be the most serious. They're the most serious of my clients. They're the most serious. I don't get a lot of men because, again, men don't reach for help. And this is just research. They don't ask for help. They don't connect. They don't seek that out because they're supposed to be strong on their own, which again is bullshit. So I call bullshit on any of that because we're all the same essentially in what we want, and we want to ultimately feel valued and to recognize our value. So men tend to be the most serious of all of if we look at the spectrum of gender, the more you go on the side of the alpha male, the more serious things get. I mean, we could look at our current climate in the United States and the people that are driving a lot of the restriction right now. Who's restricting it? It's some alpha fucking male going, I need this to fall in line with what my version of control is, and that gets
Yeah.
very serious very quickly. And they're also fucking serious about everything. And I'm like, oh my God. So, and some of it needs to be looked at. I mean, yeah, some of it does appear very serious, but again, we get to choose.
Yeah. Well, listen, I want to ask one more thing, and that is if there is a meme that you've created that represents this time that we're in, or something that comes to mind that is your favorite, or something that you've created that is speaking to you right now, which one would it be? Because I'm gonna go find it and I'm gonna put it here. And I'm gonna put it on here.
uh, so I'd have to get back to you on that. I'd have to go back and look and see what is. Yeah, there's one that it's interesting that you say that. There's one that's been popping in my brain, and I don't know why, which is about procrastination. And it's a wave, and then another wave is coming, and a person on the shore. And I've been thinking, like, my question again, which has been a question for myself for years, is: are you running away from something? Are you running towards something? Um, and I don't know why I want to talk about procrastination again at some point, because it's like it's something that I feel like a lot of people we put off. Like last year was on pause. We put a lot of things on pause. So right now I'm channeling. I don't know why I have to say this to you, but it's been a meme that's in my head, which essentially, like I said, it's a woman or man standing on the beach, and there's a wave coming, and then like a bigger wave, and it's like, oh, if I would have just dealt with the small wave first, if I would have just taken that, then the big wave hits when we let things pile up. And again, I think last year a lot of people's lives felt like they had to put them on hold for some reason and pause things. And now it feels like it's, and even I did in some way, I'm realizing, and so now it's like we have to play catch up, and so we want to make sure we're maintaining all the things all the time. um, and I'll say it's probably one of my more intellectual memes. You said accessible. I do try and maintain a certain level of that. Sometimes I try not to get. Sometimes I want to get. It's like poetry. It's like, how deep can I go in a very short space of a meme?
Yeah.
A very small space of a meme. Um, but yeah, I don't know why I had to say that, but I feel like if there's something that you've been waiting on, don't wait anymore to do it. Get on with it. It's time to move on. It's time for us to keep going. So,
Yeah, I think that's actually a very important message right now, and that's also why I asked like what comes to you, because I think that people are holding on still, they're holding on to fragments of their identity, which is
yeah,
preventing them. It's procrastination. It's preventing them from the whole process that we just experienced together. It's preventing them from stepping over the threshold,
yeah.
and they're ready to do it. They just think that they're not ready to do it because they're still holding on to the identity.
Well, yeah. And to define the identity, it's a bunch of thoughts in your head telling you who you think you are.
Yeah,
So who are you without it? Which, of course, the word that gets thrown around a lot is authenticity. Well, to me, I like to use the word reality. Who's the reality of who you are?
yeah,
Not just what's the reality. Who's the reality of who you are? Who are you at your core? And ultimately, in this incarnation, for me, I'm not going to be an accountant. I'm not going to be an attorney. I'm not going to be something I'm not. And of course, those point to professions, which is very Western. But let's even say it in a different way. I'm not. I'm not a straight man. I'm not. There are just certain things in my life that aren't true. So why would I do something that's not true for me?
yeah,
And it goes the same for everybody else. And part of doing what needs doing in the moment is being honest with ourselves about what's the next step,
yeah.
and to do what's uncomfortable.
And to find the
So
humor in it.
absolutely, absolutely, not today, Satan.
Not today, Satan.
Not today, Satan. That seriousness, not today, not today.
Oh my gosh. I absolutely have loved this time with you. I obviously was smiling the whole time because I was just lit up, like so happy that we finally got together to make something. And I'm just so excited to post this beautiful information out that you have provided and that we have made together. And I can't wait to see the things that come next and what we can teach people in the future and making another one of these. So, is there
Perfect.
a parting message that you have for anybody? Anything that comes to your mind? A little nuggy?
I think we just said it. I think it's time to get on with it,
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
whatever
Yes.
that looks like, and do it. Be gentle with yourself. Allow the ease and the grace to unfold from within you, and just go, what now?
Thank you. And thank you to everybody for watching this. I hope you received all that download and you can find the humor within this beautiful journey that we are all on individually and ultimately together. Thank you guys so much, and we'll talk to you soon.
Perfect.